Hey, it's Roy here from All Things Services Exterior Cleaning out here in lovely New Orleans, Louisiana. Here's a wash I just recently did for a customer that was actually doing some renovations on this home in Lakeview, right off the coast here of Lake Pontchartrain. And they're getting ready to do some renovations, maybe to sell here pretty soon, but either way, they wanted to get it cleaned up. And a lot of things have kind of come to a halt recently with this Arctic blast that's been coming through this area. And so I was happy to be able to get out there and get this thing done today. And so you can see pretty basic cleaning. This is actual stucco. It's not the drive-it stuff, but it's painted stucco. So it cleans up pretty easy. I was able to go at this with a typical about a 1% downstream solution. So really pretty safe for the job, for the surrounding, for the environment. And then I just, kind of reapply as necessary. So you can see here I'm using one of my trusted tools, this gutter tool, which is great for scraping out gutters, also good for knocking down wasp nests and mud nests, and anything that could be up high. We're able to reach with that pole that I had there, which gets up to about 60 feet. Great investment if you're doing this kind of work. It was about $1,200 5 years ago. But we've gotten every single dime out of it. So we use it for window cleaning, obviously, but for reaching really high spots where we've got to scrape or knock stuff down, it comes in very handy. And so I gave this back here a wash really pretty fast. It wasn't very dirty. But here you can see this side had a ton of algae growth. And so I actually went over here first and knocked down a couple of mud nests that were hanging out. And then I gave everything a quick wet. And then I come back and I hit it with the solution. So right here, I'm turning on the mix for the solution. I already had pre-wetted it. And now I'm here giving it the house wash mix. And once again, didn't have the need to pull out any really stronger solution for the actual siding here, for the side of the house. I hit it with the downstream mix here. And the key is really just to let it dwell and let it sit. And so you can see here in a minute, I'll actually, after I apply the solution, I'll go back with a pump sprayer with probably about a 3% mix, and I'll hit the skirt at the bottom, some areas here at the bottom where really heavy algae growth has taken place, and that way it can work a little bit stronger in those areas without having to apply that type of a strength to the rest of the house. Now this is good for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's good and it's just safe for the environment. The house. Any plants that would be around, just myself for the wind getting it back in my face. And it also saves money, it saves cost. So what I did is I just sprayed the whole thing with the like I said, that 1% mix, let it sit. Then I came back and hit the pump sprayer at the bottom in some of those kind of more tough areas. And I just give everything a few minutes. You can see here, I'm probably checking a message there, maybe doom scrolling. Maybe calling my wife, who knows what's going on, but I wanted to leave this in so you could kind of see the time lapse here as the solution works on the side of this stucco. Now, it may take a minute. Now, the neat thing about today's, project is like it's not summertime, it's not hot, and this was the shaded area of the house. This is the north side of the house, which is always typically the most, algae infested. And so I was able to let the solution sit probably a little bit longer than I normally would if it was summertime, because when it's hot, you really don't want to let the solution dry for sure. You don't want to let it dry on any surface, really. But I had a little bit of time to play with here, so I was able to let it kind of sit, do its thing. And now I'm going back here with just a rinse and kind of knocking it off. You can see some of it's already kind of dead and it just started to come off. And unfortunately, my camera ran out of space and I didn't get the second application on this in this clip, so we're cutting to the front of the house. But before I wrap up that other side, I did have to go back and hit it again just to be safe. I gave it another hit really quick with that same 1% mix, let it sit for another couple minutes, and then I gave it a rinse and everything was good to go. And so here's the front of the house. This was, had some decent algae buildup as well, mostly around the windows and on the windows. And then the railing of the porch actually had, the kind of black mildew on it. And so you can't really see, from with the camera how drastic the transformation was, but it was pretty big. When you're there in person, you can see it. And this is why I'm always big on taking before and after pictures. Number one, just to cover myself, but number two, for the customers. They really like to see those. And, if there's ever a question about, hey, is this going to be any cleaner? I can always go back and show the before and afters and say, well, here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. Now, on this house, you could see the paint itself is rather faded and pretty heavily oxidized because of just the sunlight. And so you'll see on that side of the house that was really bad, and even here in the front, there's some kind of streakage left from just really the rain and the runoff from the sides of the corners of the windows, and just sporadic areas where there's just been algae growth mixed with just continual drippage over the years. And so it does kind of eat into the paint, so to speak, or it oxidizes that paint, and it creates not necessarily a rut, but a streak that does not clean up. And so it's something that has to be repainted. So I'm always mindful of that and let the customer know, hey, this is what you're dealing with here. It cleans it, but it's not going to necessarily remove the streak that was formed by that continual drippage over time. And so most people understand that, especially here in the South, where it's just really hot and everything oxidizes almost instantly. The aluminum, the gutters, the painted surfaces. I mean, a lot of the times I'm very, very careful with my rinsing because of the fact that everything is so heavily oxidized that the paint could literally just, come off if you hit it too hard, and it can leave what I like to call those Zorro zog marks. You'll see them sometimes in properties where people just kind of go at it with high pressure, and it removes that failed paint. It's essentially what it is. It's failed paint. And so I'm always very careful about that because I don't want to create any more, streaks on the house than that's already there. Hopefully to create none. And so for the most part, I have a pretty good track record, and it doesn't happen very often, if really ever. Recently, it's been a long, long time since I've ran into those kind of issues. And so this porch cleaned up real nice. Like I said, the underneath there, where the front door is, it's kind of where that light is still on. And unfortunately, the customer was not home, wasn't able to get that light turned off, so I was real careful around that. That cleaned up real nice. And then here was the sunniest, I guess, side of the house, kind of equal to the back. So there wasn't a ton of algae growth on this section, although around these windows there was. And so, these windows are going to clean up real nice. And then there was also a second story area above that section here with the little window where I'm at now. Typically, I would get a ladder out and make sure that I get all the way up and down that vertical surface there. But I was able to actually hit it all and see it all from where I'm standing, most of it from where I'm standing there, and actually to see all of it when I stood about where the camera is. And so I could safely see that there was no algae growth or nothing left up there that required me, pulling out the ladder. And so every once in a while, too, I'll actually use this camera that I'm recording on, which is an Insta360 Go 3, my favorite absolute action camera of all time. And it's mainly because it's so, just perfect for this kind of videoing. And so I'll take that little camera because it's very tiny, and I'll just alien tape it to my pole, and I'll stick it up and to look into places where I need to see. And sometimes it saves me from having to get the ladder out. And so I love this little camera. And I didn't have to do that on this one. I could see. And so I just gave it a minute. I'm sitting here letting everything dwell. And then I'm going to go back and rinse it and make sure I get it, all the just the debris knocked off and make the house look, really fresh. And so this is cleaned up really nice. Like I said, I just, heavy rinse the top for sure, just to make sure, since I couldn't totally see everything from that angle. So I just saturated all with water to know that, the solution is getting watered down, it's getting rinsed down, and it won't, leave any residue that might cause any type of corrosion. And so that's one thing we're always careful with when it comes to using, the solution that we have to use is bleach based. And so rinsing is very, very important. And so here's some before and afters of the project here. You can see the back. Once again, not a super dramatic change, but it definitely freshened up a lot here in the back. And of course, you can see it a lot more in person. Here's the side of the house where it was really bad. So you can see here, a tremendous change. And once again, if you notice the oxidation streaks there on the after picture, even though it was clean. Here, the side and the front of the house looking good. I know the customer's going to be happy right away. Was able to send him the before and after pictures, let him know the job is complete, hit him up with the invoice, and we're another happy customer on the books. So, hey, leave a like, a comment, a share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know how you're doing out in your neck of the woods. I'll catch you later.